Green Bay Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst is ready for his second go-round as the man who makes the picks when the NFL draft rolls out Thursday night with the first round. Gutekunst has two number one choices in this year's draft, number 12 and number 30, acquired in last year's draft day trade with the New Orleans Saints. Gutekunst says it's Monday, so we've pretty much pulled the curtains on our draft room boards. Not much tinkering to do between now and the actual selections.
You know, you do get to this point where it's a little dangerous to react too much. So we feel really good about the work we've done. We kind of closed it up this morning after a couple last-minute things, and I wouldn't imagine there'll be a whole lot of tweaks between now and Thursday. You know, with Easter falling in the middle of this, we've only had this happen a few times, but a lot of our guys took off Friday night and went home to see their families on Sunday. Some of them stayed around here as well, but came back this morning and we get started. So
no, he didn't send his scouts home for fear of who he can trust like the Oakland Raiders did, but they are going to hang around and just chalk among themselves over the next couple of days, but doesn't expect many alterations to their draft board, which ranks players 1 through 300 by value, and then across the board position by position, top-ranked defensive backs and the top-ranked linebackers, and then they just kind of mix and match the names and take the best player on the board when their turn comes up. Now, Brian admitted he's got a lot of flexibility after going heavy on defense in free agency, signing Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, and Adrian Amos. Doesn't necessarily have to go to that side of the ball first, and that would be the first. Since 2011, the Packers have taken a defensive player every year with their first-round choice. May not be the case this year.
I do like our flexibility to be able to move around and not feel like pigeonholed to have to take a certain position or a certain player. You know, we'd always like to attack this thing with the best player available and not really focus on too many needs. And I think you know, the more you do in March, certainly the more confident you feel, and just sit there and picking the best player regardless of what you feel you may need. And history certainly here has shown the fact that there's always chances to get difference makers throughout the draft. You know. I think back to early in my career when, you know, we drafted guys like, you know, Donald Driver and Tauscher in the 7th round. I mean, those guys were absolute difference makers for our football team in the 7th round. So, you know, I think it's our job, every time we pick to see who that is.
And on the offensive side, feels like he's got a little bonus pick coming back with Cole Madison, last year's 5th-round choice, who did not report to training camp and sat out the entire year to deal with some personal issues. He's now back in the fold, and it's like having an extra offensive lineman right from the get-go.
It was great to see, you know, Cole back in the building and, you know, just, you know, doing some football things again. I mean, that was a really, really pleasant surprise. And like I said, I think, you know, he was very appreciative about the way we handled things last year, and yeah, we're excited to see what he can do for us because he had a really good offseason last year before everything kind of transpired. So yeah, very optimistic. He came back in great shape. You know, he's been working. You know, there's no limitations on him. You know, from that sense, and you know, looks like the 6'5", 300-pounder that we drafted. And again, you know, like I said, very optimistic that you know, to kind of see him progress this year.
Packers have brought in almost their full allotment of 30 players in for pre-draft visits. Players from all variety of backgrounds and schools. Top names like quarterback Drew Lock of Missouri. Don't read too much into that. It necessarily isn't going to be a quarterback succession plan this year, but don't be surprised if they do take one. Aaron Rodgers getting up there in age at 35.
We value that position extremely highly, and I think, you know, every year we spend a lot of time on the quarterbacks and trying to, you know, figure out if, you know, what kind of players those guys are going to be in the NFL, and it's really, really important to us. Because if you don't have one, it's really tough to win in this league. So, you know, for us, it's just about each and every year trying to decide which are the guys that could potentially be starters in this league and difference maker type players. And then if you have the opportunities to take them sometime in the draft, and that's the best thing for your team, I don't think you can hesitate with that. You know, again, you know, we're lucky to have the best player in the NFL playing that position right now. But at the same time, just like I was talking before, your needs can change just like that.
Remember, Brett Favre was 35 when Aaron came aboard back in 2005. But he says, we're just going to let the process play out. Oh, yes, we're going to get on the phones and start making contacts with other teams about potential trades for draft choices when the picking comes around.
We talked to all 31 other teams. Certainly we've done, you know, Mike Hallbach and our staff in football technology have done a lot of research analytically on who who's likely to trade up, who's likely to trade down, the values that they're usually willing to give up. So we have a pretty good idea. At the same time, even if they're not likely trade partners, we'll still make phone calls and make pitches, and we obviously take a bunch. So we're not really limited in that way, but we do study it.
But for now, all the heavy lifting is done. He says we work all year for this week, and now it's here. We're excited and ready to go.
This is what you work all year for, So it's really exciting to have the ability to try to help your football team and add to that mix. So I think we're all real excited. We're at that point now where we're ready for Thursday to get here. No, I really enjoy this part of it. This is. I think when you were a college scout as long as I was a college scout, this is what I know, this is what I love. So I really enjoy this part of it. And I think, our thought process has always been, let's try to improve our team. It's not about the individual players, it's about our team and what can help our team the most. And, again, having that ability this weekend to help, this team in 2019 and future teams, it's just an exciting time.
From Lambeau Field, I'm Mark Daniels.